All right, Ann, whenever you're ready.
Welcome to Texans for the Arts, weekly Wednesday Arts Advocacy Update. I'm Ann Graham, Executive Director of Texans for the Arts, and we're delighted to have you joining us today. If you are here in Austin, Texas with us, it is 78 degrees and sunny. So we're enjoying a winter day here and welcome you to the conversation. We are also in about the third and a half week of the Texas legislative session and are in the middle also of Texans for the Arts Foundation's Arts Advocacy Summit, our biennial advocacy gathering. Typically, we are in the Austin State Capitol, convening with our legislators and learning all about the issues. And right now, we're going to be having our Zoom virtual event, and it's not too late to register. Our first event was in January, and we now have our main event on Tuesday, February 9th from 9 in the morning till noon. You can go to texansforthearts.com and register, and we'll wrap up today's conversation with a little more detail about that. Today, I want to introduce a guest and also our Associate Director for a teaser conversation about what we'll be talking about on February 9th. I'd like to introduce Randy Cohen, who's the Vice President of Research for Americans for the Arts, based in Washington, D.C., the National Arts Advocacy Organization. And then also Christopher Kiley, my Associate Director here with Texans for the Arts in Austin. And the session that they're going to be leading on Tuesday is really drawing from both of their expertise, and that is sort of what makes for a successful legislative visit. We're advocates, we're setting up appointments to meet with our legislators. What is it that, how do you frame a meeting? How do you set it up? How do you tell good stories? How do you use data? When you spend the night with us in the morning learning all about the issues, how do you take all that information and craft it into a cohesive message, into an ask, and into really a conversation with your elected official and their staff? So I'm going to turn it over to Chris and Randy here to sort of start the ball rolling. Again, we hope you join us. We're delighted to have you here today, every Wednesday, and we'll take the conversation here. Randy, do you want to open up with sort of your top tips on setting up a meeting with a legislative agenda?
Sure. Thanks, Ann and Chris, and it's great to be with everybody today. Envious about that weather. If I were pointing my camera outside, you'd just see a big blanket of snow. So I'm already done with winter. It's just barely started. But so it's just great to be with you all, and thank you. And love these statewide advocacy days. And also just want to thank everybody for staying with this. It is such an exhausting time right now for everybody. We're changing things all the time, and there's just trauma, and the people we work with and serve are experiencing trauma, and that's more for us. And anyway, so I just want to just say thank you and sort of acknowledge, man, how are we doing this? It's amazing times. But one of the great things we do is in the arts is we've got the salve for the ache. I mean, that's the arts, right? In fact, just today, I published a new blog on arts and mental health, and this is such a big issue going on in our country right now. Just in the last year, mental health issues have tripled, and so and the arts have a role in improving all of that. But when working with our legislators, and especially I say this for folks, maybe having their first meeting, with a member of the legislature, I can tell you, I remember my first time I had to meet with my congressman, and you're going down these hallowed marble halls, and you step, and it's like echo, echo, echo. It felt really intimidating, and I was really, I was nervous. And I got in there though, and I had prepped, right? I had a couple of talking points, and we're going to get into that, and stories, and I hadn't made up my golden rule yet at Americans for the Arts, which is no numbers without a story and no stories without a number. But someone said I needed both, and I had that, and it was just such an exciting meeting. People were so glad to see me. My member of Congress and one of his legislative people were there, and they were just really interested to hear what I had to talk about and talk about the arts. And I talked about, jobs in the economy and arts education. And I was like, gosh, what was all the fuss about, And, I kept it short. They said, look, maybe you've got 10 minutes, if the legislator's in there, or else they'll tell you, and make sure you ask. So I knew I had about 10 minutes. And so I was prepared with my timing. And, I remembered to follow up with a thank you note, and I set up another appointment and all that kind of thing. And, short story, I built a relationship. And, what we say, we built the habit of advocacy. And now I'm like the go-to. I mean, yeah, I work in the arts, so I mean, it would make sense. I do arts advocacy, but because of that relationship, I am now a go-to person for my congressman, who's now a U.S. senator. And when something arts worthy is coming up, him or a staff person, and you know what? If you meet with a staff person, that's okay too. Sometimes you think, oh man, I missed the legislator, the elected. They all work together, and it's okay. Don't feel like this is a lost meeting, So I guess I just want to really start out by saying it's really exciting, and you're going to get hooked. But you might feel a little anxious the first time. That's okay, And
how do you think, any tips on a virtual meeting versus a meeting in person, and sort of walking in the door, going live on Zoom? One of the things that we've always done when we're in person, it's a little harder maybe to do it online, is try to learn a little bit about your elected official even before you go into the office, and the staff, and to find out if they have any connection to the arts, and use that as an opener. And they'll always say, oh, I can't sing, I can't dance, I can't play an instrument. Oh, but I played, in the marching band for 5 years, or, my daughter dances, or, I mean, there's always an arts connection, and somehow teasing that apart and making them realize, like, the light bulb goes off going, oh, actually, I do. And the arts are important to me. And nobody's really come and talked to me about them before. Therefore, they weren't on my radar. I think that's a real opportunity that we often overlook. We'll think that there's too many people that are going after the legislator. There's so many issues. Why is my issue important? And if we're not in the room, somebody else is. And we have such good things to talk about. Not just the beauty of the arts and how the arts make us feel, but the healing cure of the arts that we're all experiencing now so much. Yeah. And I mean, Chris, you've got great stories that you've gotten.
I think I wanted to jump back on the difference between a virtual or in-person meeting. I think what will be fascinating about this session, because we're talking about a state arts advocacy summit right now, is that our Congress meets every other year. That as we go into these virtual meetings, having the session be so new, I think a lot of the staff members and Congress people are also going to be sort of new to this uncharted territory of what it is to meet virtually. And so I think what's nice there is that we can let ourselves off the hook a little bit. I think to Randy's point, we often get nervous in person. We might be tempted to be even more nervous on this new frontier of what it means to meet virtually. But I would approach it very similarly to the way I would approach an in-person meeting. And that is to say that when I train advocates, I think one of the most important things we can do is to leave them with a meaningful story, not just because it makes the data more compelling, but because it offers you an opportunity to get to know them and for them to get to know you. I think legislators do care about their constituents. They care about their concerns, that they know that they're there to represent the things that matter most to us. And if you're there, then you obviously care about the arts. So lean into that and don't be afraid to tell your story. I always go back to my story, which again, I was joking before we began the session that I'd have to dust it off. It's been a while since I've told it, but the facts are the facts, and in and of themselves, that is, they are compelling. The point that I just pulled up was that students who participate in arts programming generally test about 15% higher on standardized tests. That is compelling stuff. That's a great fact point. That's also something that you're going to leave with them, leave behind, and data that they're going to have available to them. And what is going to make the difference for them is, in my experience, I used to work for an Austin nonprofit where we did what's called arts integration teaching methods. So using public resources, my organization was funded and I was funded as a teaching artist to go into a school and to teach fifth grade science in partnership with a classroom teacher. My job was to take those Texas essential knowledge and skills and apply them through the lens of the arts to get my students to pass the STAR test in science, because the particular group of underserved students that I was working with were not passing their STAR tests. And the school was really concerned about this. So we got together, and through that program, we went from, at the beginning of the year when they do their preliminary testing, with my class having a 43% pass rate, to 100% of my students pass the STAR test after being in class with them for 6 months. Wow. That is compelling, right? And I'm not talking about a peripheral teacher on the sidelines. I'm talking about me. I'm here today because that moved me. That is what I care about, is what I do. And I not only want to share my story with you, but it brings that data to life. And I would argue that so many of our grassroots advocates, our friends in the arts who care enough to be scheduling these meetings and doing the legwork to get in there, everybody has a story like that, and your legislator wants to hear it. You may not think initially that, oh, that's going to be important to them, but I can assure you it is, because that brings these things when we go to make our ask, support the House budget or the Senate budget, support the Texas Commission on the Arts, protect the hotel occupancy tax that keeps our creative landscape lively. All of those things matter, and the data is compelling, but your story is what really sends it over the top, and it's going to make it memorable, and it's going to help lay the groundwork to that future relationship that you're going to have, like Randy's with his senator, who he's had for years. Those are the kinds of things that are going to really lay the foundational work.
Yeah, that's a great story. I mean, and the numbers, and really just it's interesting in the brain research. You start with a story, it captivates you, engages you, and then the numbers just say this wasn't some accident. Or it knocks it home. But actually, it touches different parts of the brain, which is fascinating. One of the big I'm often asked a lot of times these days by legislators or staffs or decision makers. What do we need to be knowing about the arts now? How do we, make the case for the arts in this environment? We're in this unprecedented pandemic, and there's like two things that are really on everybody's mind: the economy, right? Everybody, we want to get everybody, healthy and past this pandemic, but how do we jumpstart the economy? And the arts are a bigger industry than anybody ever expects. The U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis, the BEA, and I'm sure you have these figures in some of your materials. Just in Texas alone, if you look at all arts, culture, nonprofit, commercial, $46.6 billion, billion with a B. That's 2.8% of gross state product of the state economy, 375,000 jobs. And, but so the arts are kindling for the economy. And think about, whenever we go to an arts event, do we like sneak out, see the show, run back home before somebody sees us? No, it's like it's an event. We're making an evening of it, and maybe we dress up and we park the car, pay for parking, have dinner, see the show, dessert or drinks afterwards. And you got little ones at home, you double the cost of the evening on babysitting. Well, I can tell you from our national research, the typical attendee spends $31.47 per person per event, not including the cost of admission, every time they go to an arts event. We actually also asked those folks, do they live in the county in which the arts event took place, or are they from outside of the county, right? Because, we're thinking about the cultural districts, we're thinking about driving tourism. 34% of arts attendees come from outside the county. So next time you're sitting at a show and, and if you're the local, one of those folks are from out of town, they average $48 per person per event. And we actually asked those folks yet another question, because we're just that annoying, which was, why are you here? It's so great you came from out of town, to see the arts, but you're here on business, visiting friends and family. 69% said we came specifically for this arts event. So the arts have pulling power. And And so the arts, again, are going to be kindling for the economy. They're going to get us out of our homes, and we're going to be spending that $31.47 at local businesses. Local merchants are seeing that benefit. But then, the flip side of this is our well-being, and we're isolating, we're quarantining, we're distancing. And how do we rebuild? How do we reconnect our communities again? And this is the arts. Shared experiences in public spaces, whether it's a festival or a mural or, seeing Hamilton for the third time. Nobody cares who you voted for or where you practice your faith, right? We're all having this great cultural experience together. And there's numbers behind that. 72% of the American public says the arts unify our communities, regardless of age, race, or ethnicity. 73%, the arts help me understand other cultures in our community. We're going to have to rebuild socially as well as economically. That's the arts. The arts are struggling right now, and this, that's the why. What do we got to do? We got to invest in the arts. We got to support these arts organizations now to get those benefits later.
That's really one of the, our largest message points in meeting with our legislators this session right now is the budget is under discussion, and the Texas Commission on the Arts Cultural District budget for the Senate budget has been cut, and we're trying to get that restored. The impact of those dollars are real. And after the first round of funds were given to cultural districts last session, some of those were allowed to become operating expenses if they weren't able to manifest themselves as programs, depending on what the resources were.
That's great.
So, and the NEA did that, and the TCA was able to do that in a really important way, because operating expenses are one of the things that we really need to keep these organizations alive. They can't help us rebuild a community as the pandemic wanes if they don't exist. So, looking at the organizations that are struggling, they're paying rent for facilities they're not using. They're not able to, to teach or to perform in the same ways. So many of them, as we know, have really found ways to keep the arts going. I think that's the fire in the belly, is that artists create no matter what they're going to be creating, but they do need infrastructure. They're like our neighbors, they're us. They're part of the overall economy, not just the arts economy. And it's really important that we find ways and public resources to help keep the nonprofit sector and individual artists alive and well, as we all are. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges we're facing. And in a world when every other sector is also challenged, but the arts is really truly unique. And Randy, you hit upon that in healing us moving forward. So they're really, I can't think of anything else actually that really is going to be able to bring us together as a community moving forward.
And I just want to go back to, we're talking today specifically, I think a little bit about what makes for a successful meeting, right? When we meet with our legislator. And what we just saw there was two really good examples that I think happened organically, but really speak to the kind of advocate that you're going to discover that you are when you go into the room. Whereas I feel, I think perhaps because my background's in theater, I'm a storyteller. I want to tell the story. And what I do is that story makes the data feel compelling to me. And that's how I communicate it. Randy just took a bunch of really, really compelling data and turned it into a compelling story, And so it's like, however you attack the way that you communicate, you can still have something really important to say. And I wanted to make sure that, we noticed that those were two very different approaches, but both had a really compelling outcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think one of the things I've always heard about the best measure of success is if your legislator is heard telling your story to someone else. That whatever it was that, and even setting up legislative visits, some of the calls that I've had and emails I've had from people just this last week are, hey, I called this office and I talked to the aide, and the aide remembered y'all from 2 years ago. They remembered the arts people. And, one, that's good. That's a great, said there was a successful visit there, but it means that there's also the relevancy is alive and well, and it's up to us to keep that fire out there.
There's, so we've got we talked about the golden rule, no numbers without a story, no stories without a number. I also have kind of a 3 questions advocacy strategy, because, there's books, there's volumes, there's whole rooms, how do you do it? But ask yourself these 3 questions. What's the message? who gets the message and who delivers the message. So we've already just talked about a bunch of messages, right? Jobs, well-being, healthcare, on down the line. But that relates to the second one. Who gets the message? Now that's the work, you're already in process, right? You're setting up your meetings with your state legislators, but maybe you can find out a little bit more. There's a research opportunity here. What do they really care about? Do they care about education? Well, boy, just bring Chris along to tell, the incredible education story. Do they, most of them, care about jobs and the economy? Do they care about arts and healthcare? The arts, when the arts are part of our healing, we have shorter hospital stays, fewer doctor visits, it saves money. And then, you can set up your meeting a little bit so you can just get right to something that person cares about. And then the third question, who delivers the message? Washington or, Ann and Chris in the state capitol. I mean, they see me coming a mile away, when I'm there, the guys cover up their wallets, ladies, lock their purse inside of their drawer or something like that. But when you bring an educator, or you bring, one of the kids from the programs, or a member of the faith community, or a business leader, to talk about the importance of the arts, to tell their story, it's just so important, and it has. And then you can prepare that person as well. So I've got an arts background. Here I am, theater background also. I also have a medical research background. I used to work at Stanford, used to work at Scripps Clinic out in California. When I worked at Scripps, every Tuesday at 3 o'clock, we used to have live chamber music in the lobby for patients and whoever. And it was great. 3 o'clock, the music would soar and completely transform the environment. Patients could walk in there, be wheeled in there, their family, medical staff if they had time. But patients that we all start to notice, patients that we'd see clinically in their rooms, lethargic, depressed, even if you have a view of the ocean, nobody wants to be there, right? You could see physical transformation take place in people. Eyes got less cloudy, their posture got better, and you just sort of sense a greater awareness, of around them, like they had woken up. And we used to think, it's like they're getting an IV drip of the arts, or, something's happening here. And again, there's this growing body of research, that's, improved healthcare, shorter hospital stays, fewer doctor visits. Well, eventually we talked to the CEO of the hospital and the research institute there, really powerful medical person, but he never really got that. He never really understood the link. He thought, well, this helps the environment and everything like that. I tell you, I wish I was an arts advocate back then, because I would have brought him along to the city council meeting or whatever, and it's like, Dr. Edwards, tell the story of what's going on in your lobby and how that's affecting healthcare. So these things really tie together as well.
Well, thank you both. I mean, there's a lot of fodder here. I guess for all of those watching who are going to be meeting with their legislators, to be thinking about what are the experiences that you've had that might be worthy of sharing. Dig deep. Some of you may just immediately know some stories that you'd like to share, but think about the power of the work that you do. Doesn't matter what your art form is, what writing, music, dance, movement, theater, all aspects of creativity play a role in this. So we're going to sign off right now. We hope you will join us at the Arts Advocacy Summit, and go to texansforthearts.com, and you can still register. It's free, and it's a great way, and not too late, to get involved and to actually follow Texans for the Arts generally and the work that we do year round, not just during the session. And we'll hope to see you next Tuesday.
See you next week. Thanks for your good work, everybody.
Yes, looking forward to seeing everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.